Hello, and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for this show. My guest today is Erica Smitka. Erica is the executive director of the League of Women Voters of New York State. So, Erica, welcome to North Country Matters. Usually you're hosting the Zoom, and this time you're the guest. So it's kind of a nice role reversal, isn't it?
That's true. It's relaxing for me. I like it this way. But
So,
it's great to be here. Thanks, Donna.
well, you're welcome. So you joined the leadership of this organization at a very pivotal moment in our history, both of that of the league and of the nation. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in this key leadership position with the league here in New York State?
Sure. And you hit the nail on the head. And I think when I took this role back in July of last year, I don't think I really could have anticipated just how interesting and busy this next year would be. We'll say that. But I think my I've always had the heart for both for volunteering, which is really a core value of the league. I always say I've never seen an organization where people volunteer with as much passion and volunteer as many hours as I see league folks do each and every day, and that's really inspiring to me. But I've also, so that the league helps, it scratches that volunteer itch that I have. But my background is primarily in grassroots organizing and campaign work. I moved away from that a little bit and started to veer into the development sphere, doing some grant work and foundation and actually some federal contracting at one point. And really, had a and have a passion for the issues that we work on. So really wanted to get back to more policy work. And so actually started at the league as our deputy director and was really the key person on advocacy across New York State. So I did that for 2 years, and that was wonderful. And we saw our former executive director, Laura Bierman, retire after 14 years. And I was, just really lucky and grateful to be here and to have the opportunity to step into this role. And as you said, what is a pretty pivotal time in our country's history.
It is, and grassroots organizations are really the backbone of advocacy when you get right down to it. Lots of organizations have a presence in the nation's capital or in the state capitals, but the League is one of those organizations which has members all across the ground in every state. And so when we take action, it really is the power of numbers, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. And one of the things I really like to highlight for folks is that the League is truly one of the few remaining truly grassroots organizations. And it's and Donna, but our decision-making process, anytime we decide to take action on something, it's not done lightly. And all of those decisions are really made from the bottom up. So at that local league level, everyone has an opportunity to participate in the decision-making process on whether we're going to take action on X, Y, and Z issues. And all of that builds up to the work that we do on the national scale. And that's really powerful to be able to provide members not only with that ownership over the organization, but also, just as you said, with our local leagues are our boots on the ground and the folks that are able to get going and take action almost immediately on issues that matter.
And we've seen that over and over again. The league has been very visible this year in speaking out against many of the anti-democratic initiatives of the Trump administration since it took power in January. I think the most powerful of those statements came on April 17th when the league declared the United States was in a constitutional crisis. Talk to us about that declaration and why the league decided it had to speak out so forcefully.
Mm. Yeah, so that declaration was born out of what we were seeing as time and time again, essentially direct attacks on our democratic processes and procedures, just as you said. And what really spurred this final decision was ultimately when we saw the president directly defy a Supreme Court order to return Marylander Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia back to the United States. And so that was pretty cut and dry and a pretty clear example of a constitutional crisis. So that's when the U.S. League made that announcement. And it's also when we launched our new campaign, Unite and Rise 8.5, which I know we'll talk about today. But I that wasn't the only time that we saw really blatant disregard for the law and for due process. Um, since then, there have been multiple attempts, whether it be by executive order or direct policy decisions, to limit access to the ballot. So things like attempting to outlaw the ability to vote by mail, limiting participation of nonpartisan groups like the League in registering newly naturalized citizens at administrative naturalization ceremonies, questioning the integrity of voting machines, and directly encouraging partisan gerrymandering to limit really the voices of historically disenfranchised people. And honestly, that's just the kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we've seen so far.
It is the tip of the iceberg, and it's rather ironic that you and I are having conversation on Constitution Day,
That's
because
right.
I don't think the Constitution has ever been in more peril in my lifetime, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said it well.
So, here in New York State in May, the New York State League began a civic education advocacy series of webinars called Democracy Defenders. Erica, tell us a little bit about that series, what maybe some of the topics that you've covered, how people could get involved, and where does it go next?
Sure. So we saw what we really wanted to provide to our members and to the community at large is the ability to take action on issues that matter at all levels. So whether it be a federal issue, a statewide issue, or a local issue, we wanted to give people the tools that they need to engage in ways that are really effective. So far, some of the topics we've covered are effective lobbying, whether it be to your US Senator or whether you're talking to a town board member in your own community. We've talked about how to organize an effective rally and protest. We did moderator training to train up folks to be moderators for candidate forums. We talked about how to effectively and properly testify, whether it be at state hearings or public meetings. We talked a little bit about ranked choice voting and understanding ranked choice voting, which is something that we do here in New York City, and just agreed to support as a league statewide. We also talked about the recent redistricting debacle, for lack of a better word. Um, and, coming up, we're going to cover, we've got a lot of topics that we're going to cover, some of which are going to launch a new program, a statewide observer program. We're going to have a seminar on how to write a compelling letter to the editor and a compelling op-ed. And then we'll host one on how to power map to really build grassroots momentum and movement within your own community. And there's a lot more to come. So if folks are interested, all of these can be found on our website at www.lwvny.org.
That's right, because these programs are videotaped, and so later on, anybody who wants to go ahead and check back. You're really talking here about grassroots civic education, which we know is desperately needed all across the board in this country. One of, I think, the most exciting things that I have seen is how many people are responding. And they're coming out to local protests, and they're not letting their local congressperson off the hook, who is maybe trying to be invisible, and only engage through the media instead of actually in front of voters where they live. And we've seen an awful lot of that lack of engagement, and people are fed up with it.
Yep. Yeah. And to your point, Donna, we're really seeing kind of democracy in action, right? And we're seeing people hold when someone runs for office, it's a job interview, right? They're running to hold a job and to represent the people in their community. And people really are showing up and turning out to hold these people accountable and to say, this is what I see happening on the federal level, but it's not what I support. And it's not, how I want to see. I want to see my government working ethically, appropriately, and with a system of checks and balances. And that's not what we're seeing. So it has been really great to see people kind of hit the ground literally. We're seeing a lot of boots on the ground, and work to hold folks accountable.
Yeah, and the league has been so visible, and as an organization has such a tremendous trust. The community trusts the league because we've got such a long history of being nonpartisan and being deliberative and speaking out on issues when they need to be spoken out on. So at the national level, the league created what they are calling the Unite and Rise 5.8 campaign. Erica, what is the purpose of this campaign? Where did the number 8.5 come from, and what does it mean?
Sure. So 8.5, don't want to flip it up there. 8.5 million came out of a study that came from the Carr Center at Harvard. It was a study done by someone named Erica Smitka, and they found that nonviolent protests are twice as likely to succeed as armed conflicts, especially when there are those that engage 3.5% of the population. They said that those have never failed to succeed. And we do know, that nonviolent protests have had very powerful systemic change, not only here in the United States, but nationwide in a variety of spaces and on different topics. So the league looked at the number of potential active voters in the United States, and 3.5% is that 8.5 million. So we are working to activate and engage and empower 8.5 million potential voters across the United States to support the league and to support the work that we're doing and holding our government accountable, and saying that, we want to see our government acting in a way that's just and equitable. Now we're doing that work here in New York as well. So 3.5% of our population is 496,000, rounded that up to 500,000 people. So it's going to be our goal to engage 500,000 people here in New York.
Well, one of the things that I'm seeing locally is that these national days of protest that are coming up, whatever it is, we're seeing 300 and 400 people come out locally to protest. That is a remarkable number for small rural communities to have that many people that are engaged and willing to be vocal and visible. So I think that the league is exactly right when they're thinking about how do we energize people who are already energized and make sure that they hold their electeds' feet to the fire, answer the tough questions before election day, and then become really committed and informed voters, because that is the key to change, successful nonviolent change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that, I think it's important to highlight that, I completely lost my train of thought there.
That's perfectly okay. We'll carry on and it'll come back. It does for me.
I I remember, Donna. I hate to
Okay.
interject. Exactly, to your point, I think when we were first looking at those numbers, that 500,000 people in New York may have seemed a little bit overwhelming. But when I looked at the impact that the league has had, statewide in previous years, just last year, we engaged over 1 million people in our Get Out the Vote efforts, which is huge, right? And so if we can reach folks through just get our typical annual Get Out the Vote efforts, imagine how many folks we can reach now that folks are engaged and quite frankly mad and they want to see change and they want to see something happen. So we're really excited to hit those numbers and more.
They do. And since 2025 is a local election year, there are no national candidates, there's no state candidates for the most part. Really, your vote is going to impact at the local level, and it is the local people in government who have the most effect on people's lives. So this is actually the perfect time to get people paying attention to the issues and getting them to understand that you start local and then you ratchet up to state and then you go up to the national level. So I think this is great training ground for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there are 4 key points to the United and Rise campaign. Briefly, can you just go over what they are so people kind of have an idea of what the campaign is going to look like?
Sure. So those 4 prongs look at legal and policy advocacy. So it's things like advocating in the legislature for pro-voter reforms and pro-election reforms, but it's also challenging unconstitutional actions through litigation or through amicus briefs, or highlighting or filing litigation when we see a violation of due process. It also looks at public mobilization, so turning people out, right? Turning out millions of people across the country, partnering with other grassroots organizations and kind of movement building. The third is civil engagement, and this really kind of gets at that mis and disinformation piece, which has had such a strong and negative effect on trust and the trust in the integrity of our elections over the past few years. But this piece, or this kind of prong, also gets at expanding voter registration and voter turnout. As you know, Donna, voter turnout is incredibly important here in New York. Just last year, we ranked 47 out of 50 when it came to voter turnout. And that's, out of the 50 states, we ranked 47th, which is just which is abysmal, right? New York is seen as a state that has a lot of people who are actively engaged in politics. And to rank almost dead last is something that we've really got to change. And then that last prong looks at democracy resilience. So are we doing what we need to do to ensure that the systems that support our democracy and defend our democracy, are they strong and are they in place? And how can we ensure that they continue to do so and to be so?
And that's really important as we're talking about things happening right now because there's so much undermining of our democracy. There's undermining of our constitutional principles. There's undermining of authority in terms of how it's all been run. And so, those are important things that we need to be paying attention to because, quite frankly, if somebody undermines a little bit of constitutional authority and people don't speak out, they're going to be tempted to undermine the next piece of it. So constant vigilance is really a big part of what needs to happen in order to stop this erosion, isn't it?
That's exactly it. It's that vigilance, and it's holding people accountable, which is something that the league has done for many, many years, and excited to continue to do so.
That's right. And we're looking for more shoulders at the wheel, which is what the United and Rise campaign is
Absolutely.
about. So, how
Absolutely.
can league members and citizens who are concerned about all of these issues support the campaign? What
Sure.
needs to happen out here in the grassroots on the ground?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing you can do is you can go onto the league's website and sign the pledge. Sign the pledge stating that your name is backing this movement and backing the support of the league in this action. The next thing I'd recommend you doing is really linking up with your local league. Your local league are, you know, a group of incredibly empowered folks who kind of know exactly where to plug in. Some of the things that our members are going to be working on in the upcoming year is going to be a lot of legislative advocacy here in New York to solidify our election systems and how we run our elections here. It's going to be joining in on that statewide observer corps that I mentioned, which is going to be a group of folks that are looking at the kind of those core tenets of democracy in their own community and making sure that they're running as they should. So going to a town board meeting and making sure that they are following open meeting laws or that there's transparency there. Going to a city council meeting and ensuring that they are a public hearing and ensuring that they're giving everybody their 2 minutes, whatever that might look like, kind of ensuring that those systems are working. We have also got we're going to be ramping up our lobby corps to help boost some of those legislative efforts. We are going to continue to do our Democracy Defender series. So even if you can't join the league, I'd encourage you to check that out and see how you might be able to take action in your own community. We are also, as always, going to be working to distribute educational materials and get and do community outreach and community education sessions to educate folks on not only the issues and what we're seeing at the national level and at the community level, but also giving them the information they need, whether it be the information they need to show up at the polls or whether it be the information they need to take action on an issue that could be impacting them. And there are, many, many other ways and things that we'll be doing. But I think probably the easiest thing you could do is just take that first step, sign the pledge, and take a look for your local league and get involved.
That's good advice, Erica. So I think this is a good time to explain to people that the league is nonpartisan. And let's tell people what that means and why we're nonpartisan, because we've seen so much partisanship in political decisions in the last year or in several of the last elections that people are really discouraged because they feel like they don't have a voice, but they actually do. And the league's nonpartisan policy is one of the reasons why they can have a voice.
Absolutely. And this is, one of the other things I really love about the league as an organization. We've got a long, throughout our entire history, we've always been nonpartisan. And nonpartisan means that we never support or oppose a candidate, political candidate, or anyone running for office, and we never support or oppose any one party or political organization. So we are never, the more and more our country kind of moves towards this super bipartisan and bifurcated way of looking at issues, the league will never take sides as it relates to a politician, a candidate, or a political party. But what that does mean, though, or what that doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that we are not political, right? We operate in this political sphere, and so of course we're political. That's what the organization was founded from women fighting for the right to vote, and that's politics. So it doesn't mean that we're not political, and it doesn't mean that we don't take action on issues. Not to go back again, but to go back to our history, that's how we were founded on folks fighting for equity in one way, shape, or form. And so we continue to fight for these same issues and continue to have these same stances on issues that we've had for over 100 years. And that can range from everything from voting rights and equity around voting for all people, or it can range to reproductive rights, for example, or healthcare or the environment. We've taken a number of stances on issues, many of which we've had for decades and decades. I think that's probably one of the most frustrating parts is when people try to identify something that the league is saying by saying, oh, the league is saying this, they must be aligned with X, Y, and Z party. When, I look back at our history and say, no, we've been fighting for access for abortion for, whatever it is, over 50 years, right? Before X, Y, and Z candidate was ever on the map. So it's just, as the country becomes more and more bipartisan, it's becoming more difficult to and more important to enforce to people just how nonpartisan the league is, and we truly take that incredibly seriously.
The two examples I like to use when we're talking about these issues is people forget that the EPA and Title IX were both signed by President Nixon in 1972. And that
Yeah.
was a long time ago now, but the point is that, Republicans then were for those things. Republicans now are not for those things. We need to keep in mind that parties change over time as well
Yep.
as ideas. And so the nonpartisan thing is if the league supports it, it supported it through Republican administrations, it supported it through Democratic administrations, it
Yep.
supports it because it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. That's
So
exactly it. Yep.
So let's talk about a couple of other important league programs quickly. Tell us a little about Vote 411 as we're in the run up here to the fall election in New York State. What is vote411.org?
Sure. We like to talk about Vote 411 as your one-stop shop for everything you need to know before you head to the polls. So you log on to Vote 411, plug in your address, and it'll tell you everything you need to know. It'll tell you how to make sure you are registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, it'll direct you to where you can go to get registered to vote. It'll tell you who is going to be on your ballot, what races you'll be voting on, as well as any propositions, whether it be statewide or local. And then it's also going to tell you a little bit about the candidates that are running for office. So each and every candidate, we ask the same exact questions of, so that you can see, and we put their answers on our website as they have been written to us, so you can see exactly how that candidate feels, or exactly what their opinion is on any one issue. It really kind of gives you everything you need to know so that you can walk into the polls as an educated voter And I think we've all maybe had that instance where we've been in the poll booth and said, "Oh, I didn't have a chance to look into this race, and I'm just really not sure what either one of these candidates stand for." And that's exactly what Vote 411 is designed to prevent against, right? It's supposed to be a really quick way to get the information you need to be an educated voter.
Right. Another important league education program is called Students Inside Albany. Local leagues will soon be starting the process to find local high school students to apply for the 2026 event, which will be held next spring. Let's explain a little bit about what Students Inside Albany is and how it works, because this is a great opportunity for local high school students to be supported in really understanding what's going on inside our government at the state level.
Absolutely. It's one of kind of the key programs of the league. We invite 60 high school students from across the state to join us here in Albany for a 3.5 day session where we teach them everything they need to know about how to get involved in government in a variety of different ways. So we bring in folks to talk from different advocacy groups to talk about how to lobby and how to advocate. We bring in folks from the media, different media resources and outlets to talk about what it's like to be a journalist. We bring in legislators to talk about what it's like to be a legislator. And then we bring in people who have run for office, try to bring in someone who's succeeded and someone who's failed to talk about what that process is like. And then in between all of this, they'll go over to the Court of Appeals. And then probably the most transformative part of the program is that they get to spend half a day shadowing their assembly member and then half a day shadowing their senator. And what they really get to see is they get to see really how all these pieces fit together when they go to do that, but also that our legislators and our representatives are just people, and they are people that we can and should go talk to, and that they're just people, just like you and I, and that not only is there the power and the ability to run for office and be one of those people someday if these students choose, but also that these people are accessible and that this is their job, right? To be held accountable and to work on behalf of their constituents.
Well, that is certainly the lesson that our local league, Student Inside Albany, took away this last spring, because the first thing she said was, "They're just people too." So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a great lesson. And finally, Erica, let's tell people how they can join the league. Many local leagues have been finding that people are eager to learn more about what is happening to democracy in our country in these troubled times, and that the league has the tools and capacity to help them to understand the issues and take action. So how do we join the league?
So the easiest way to do it is now we've got this great new program. So you can go to www.lwv.org and just click join, and it'll direct you not only to the state, but it'll direct you right to your local league so that you can join your local league directly. So it's just www.lwv.org.
And there's also a sliding fee scale. So if people
Yes.
don't have a heavy pocketbook, they can still afford to join the league, right? Or if they've got money, they can give more.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up, Donna. Yes, this is a critical piece. We never want money to be a barrier to someone joining the organization. So
Well, thank you, Erica, so much for coming in today. We've had a lot to talk about. There's
I know it.
a lot for people to be thinking about in these times that are going on. You can hardly pick up a newspaper or look at a news program and not understand that democracy is under a lot of pressure right now, and that we all have to stand strong if we are going to continue to have the kind of country we want to have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, Donna, to talk about
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure, and we will invite you back.
that. Oh, would love to.
Great.
Thanks, Donna.
So, thank you. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, not only does our North Country matter, so does our democracy.